This is our second ever big online forum like this. We did another one a couple months ago on immigrant justice. And so it's a bit of an experiment, thinking about how can we get a lot of faces together in the same room, even if we can't be in the same room together, and to have this kind of conversation. And this call, as folks know, is hosted by the Pennsylvania Student Power Network. So that's our group. We rock the swag, witness the swag. I see a bunch of folks with swag in this room. And for folks who aren't familiar, we are a statewide organization across PA. So I'm in Philly, but there are a bunch of Erie folks in the room. Shout out to Erie and kind of everybody in between. And we organize campaigns around issues of economic justice, of racial justice, immigrant justice, and social justice. And this fall, folks will talk more about this, but we launched this campaign to make college across Pennsylvania free. And so we have just a little bit more about our organization. We have a membership system. So if anybody here is a student or knows students who are not yet registered members of PA Student Power Network, we will hit you up after the call and make that happen. For this call, we have a pretty packed agenda, and it's going to come in 3 parts. So part 1 is going to be introducing free higher education as an issue, and introducing the movement that we're building across Pennsylvania. Part 2 will be introducing a panel of elected officials and candidates, a couple of whom are with us right now, who we are super, super grateful to have with us, who will share what this issue means to them and how it connects to the work that they do. And we'll have time for a couple of questions for the panelists after that, though it won't be as much like a panel, just because part 3 will be, we want to create space for other folks to chime in and share what free college means to them. So that's, we have student speakers, we have some worker leaders, we have some community members who are gonna talk about that. And then we'll close out from there. So with that, I'm gonna turn over to Espoir, who will kick us off.
Hi, so I'm Espoir, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why here, and kind of the situation that we have. So this is why free college matters here in Pennsylvania, and with you all, which are amazing, and I'm so glad we're all here together tonight. Pennsylvania students graduate with the second highest student debt in the country. Pennsylvania has cut its budget for higher education the 3rd most of any state since 2008. And because of that, the system is completely unsustainable for students, our families, and our communities. But in general, free higher education is about equal opportunities and equal freedom for everyone. It's about racial justice, it's about equality for immigrants, LGBTQ plus people, survivors of violence, and every single person. It's about fulfilling the promise of public education from kindergarten through college. It's also about shifting the priorities of our political system. Already, Tennessee, Oregon, and New York have undertaken measures to eliminate tuition. They've shown that the money is there to do this. And now more and more states are hopping on board. Pennsylvania could be next. So I would like to invite Daniel from Shippensburg University, and Carlos from Penn State Erie. What does free college mean to y'all?
Free college to me means, well, it means it means a lot. It means a whole lot to me and my family, because my family from, day one has always lived in very, very high poverty. We've always struggled to make it month to month. And, I was never sure if I was ever even going to be able to come to college. But my family, promised me that no matter what, I would, they would make sure that I got a higher education, and that I would, be successful in life, because they wanted me to make a better life for myself than they had for themselves. And it means a lot to me that they're putting themselves in at so much risk with the debt and everything, just because they want to see me succeed. And I just wish that I didn't have to put them through that, just so I could have a shot at being successful and, being able to make ends meet and being able to live comfortably, and even support them, because they've supported me just through thick and thin for 19 years. And it's always been hard, especially I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Reading, Pennsylvania, but it's very high in poverty. It's got a lot of crime, and it's a very unpleasant place to be. And I've been raised there since I was little, and I've had very unpleasant experiences there, having to hide under the sheets in my apartment because there were gunshots in the parking lot out back. And I want something better for me, and I want something better for my family than what we've been given. I don't think that we should be stuck at the bottom for our whole lives. I think that if we put the work in and we fight for it, that we should be able to come out on top. And I think free college could mean that for a lot of people in similar situations to me.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was really powerful. Carlos, would you
Well,
share?
Daniel, like, I truly resonate with you, man. Like, that's very, very, very true. So in my personal case, I'm an immigrant. I'm from Colombia with my brother, Angel. So first of all, being a minority, being an immigrant, and then wanting to succeed going to college is a huge burden that I have to break. For example, my dad, he has 3 jobs. He works from Monday to Friday, 14 hours, from 6 in the morning to 9 p.m., 14 hours. And that's not enough, because I also have to work. I also, my brother will also eventually have to work. And I feel gonna have like more than $50,000 in debt. And that's just, going to school. I want to go to grad school. I want to make an impact in society. It's this system that is pressing us down and pushing us down, and just want to make us be like a workforce, want me to work in a McDonald's or a Walmart. And, like me, there are thousands of teenagers and young adults who want to make a change, who want to follow their dreams. And I feel that we need to stand up today and start making a change, because this is unacceptable. In my personal case, every day I have to wake up and think, okay, what am I gonna eat right? What is gonna be my breakfast? What is gonna be my lunch? Am I gonna have enough money to go to my lunch? Then my classes. How am I gonna afford my books? How am I gonna go back home? Do I have enough money for the gas? Like, it's a day-to-day struggle. Every cent counts. And then you just see in the news, or for example, this semester with the budget for Penn State, they were just basically messing around with that and making it like a political manipulation, a political propaganda. They're messing around with our lives, and we just don't do anything. This is just unacceptable. That's it, guys. So now, okay, now I have to take control of this. So what are we doing now is that we're uniting across all Pennsylvania's colleges, Commonwealth schools like Penn State, state schools like Shippensburg, private schools, and community colleges. So our goal basically is to challenge administrators, elect officials, and candidates to support free education for all. So we have 3 main goals in mind that we're gonna eventually accomplish. The first is to make Pennsylvania's state and community college tuition free, work towards a policy to make this a reality. The second goal is to make free college go viral. We want every candidate in 2018 to be talking about these issues. And third, as we're working towards a statewide change, we need changes to make colleges more affordable on the campus level. Like, we also want to create and resonate with social justice, and like a decent and living minimum wage in the universities, because what we have now in Pennsylvania is not a living minimum wage. So right now I'm gonna give the command to Alfonso to lead the call. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Hi, everybody. My name is Alfonso. And as of right now, how you can get involved is to share the petition with everybody that we know. That will be provided in the chat by James. If you're a student right now, you can join PA Student Power and get involved with our campaign on your campus. And if you're a faculty or community member, you can connect us to other students that you know. Over the next few months, we will be holding local town hall forums, statewide to highlight student and community stories to help build support. So please help us host one in your area. And now I will turn it back over to James.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. The last little piece before we introduce our speakers is I'm going to point folks back to the chat. So first of all, folks should see that there's a link to the petition that we just put in the chat. Anybody can sign that. And we want to have everybody who's on the call right now, who's at their computer, type two things in the chat. We want folks to type the names of two people who, after this call, you are going to reach out to talk about these issues and talk about building this movement. And then we want folks to name any groups that you're part of who you'd like to get involved in the movement as well. So again, the names of two people, anybody who you know, who you want to get involved in this movement and who you want to talk to about these issues after the call. And then also any groups that you're part of that you would like to get involved. So let's just take a couple of minutes to do that. Awesome. So if you're still typing, keep typing. Don't stop typing. But we are going to move on to our speakers. This is a really special lineup of people. And folks might recognize some of these names. And if you don't, then you're going to get to know these folks. Again, we are really grateful to have them on this call to talk with us about these issues. We're going to ask each speaker to speak for 3 to 5 minutes. So for real, please don't go over 5 minutes, just because we still have a pretty loaded agenda. With that, we're going to just do a little introduction for each person. And I'm going to turn over to Aspar, who is going to introduce our first speaker, Reverend Greg Edwards.
Thank you so much, James. So Greg Edwards is the founder and senior pastor of Resurrected Life Community Church and the president and CEO of Resurrected Community Development Corporation. He has spent the last 20 years building a racially diverse, culturally rich, economically self-sufficient, and politically aware community that has addressed racial, economic, and educational disparities within Allentown and throughout the greater Lehigh Valley. He has been recognized by Morehouse College for his body of work in social justice and was inducted into the Martin Luther King Board of Preachers along with Reverend Dr. William Barber. Dr. Edwards is now leveraging his experience in community organizing, economic development, and public policy as a candidate to represent Pennsylvania's 15th Congressional District on Capitol Hill. It is my honor to welcome Reverend Edwards to our panel.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Can you hear me? Thumbs up? Excellent. Okay. So thank you for the invite and the generous introduction. And let me say this, that I am about 20 years out of my undergraduate degree, my first degree, and I'm about $30,000 in debt. And so I'm still carrying student loans, and I'm almost 50. And so I fully support the notion that we need to have free tuition, specifically at all of our public institutions. You know, I mean, at least for me, you know, education shouldn't just be a way out of poverty. It should really be a way to end it. But when you go into college, and most of us, I don't know about you all here, but I'm a first generation college graduate in my family, right? So my brothers and sisters didn't attend college. My parents didn't attend college. So a lot of their hopes and aspirations were pinned on me. And unfortunately, even though we came from an impoverished family, there was necessarily no free ride, even though I kind of matriculated into college and just accumulated debt because I wanted to graduate and finish. But the bottom line is, so I ended up in an institution that I was overwhelmed at and had to do work study at. And obviously, because I had to do work study to pay for my loans, my studying suffered. And so though I graduated and graduated well, I'm still carrying the debt of a degree that actually is worth less today than it was when I first graduated back in 1997, right? So the reality is, we know as a nation, we can afford to send all of our citizens to school for free. We can afford it. This is not pie in the sky. This is not about the economy. The reality is we have multinational companies, some of whom I see that we're using their products, like, right, Apple, Microsoft, GE. These corporations don't pay federal income tax. So we need to close, through federal legislation, we need to close the loopholes to bring some of that offshore money back so that we can create an income level that pays for this proposition. And the bottom line is, now, we don't go to school necessarily to end poverty. Most of us are going to school to kind of get out of poverty. And really, the ultimate goal of education shouldn't just be coming out of poverty, but ending poverty, right? I mean, that's Paulo Freire, right? The pedagogy of the oppressed. So we know if we close the loopholes, on these corporations, we have more than enough money to pay for all of our students to go to school for free. The fact of the matter is, in the 15th Congressional District, we have Kutztown University and we have Lehigh Carbon Community College. All of our students in the 15th Congressional District and beyond should be able to have unfettered access and opportunity to a high quality education, point blank, without excuse. So, you know, education, like healthcare, should not be an entitlement. It should be an absolute right. And the fact of the matter is, we have the national catastrophe that we have in Washington because we have disengaged our citizenry and we don't have critical thinking at the highest rungs of government. So we got folks making decisions for us who are not critical thinkers, and they have degrees. And degrees that they have already been paid for. So the reality is, most of the students that I have run into in social justice networks are absolutely brilliant beyond measure. And now we graduate from schools and don't have a means to pay for the piece of paper that we have graduated with. So I fully support the notion. That we need federal legislation. Bernie Sanders has already put it on the floor. We can pay for it. We have a way to pay for it. It's just a matter of us being able to put pressure on our elected officials to do what's right. You know, there's a notion in government now that anything that is public really is an entitlement. That's a lie, right? That's a switch of words. Public does not mean entitlement. Public means it's already been paid for by taxpayers. But there's been a switch that anything that is public is entitlement, and if it's entitlement, therefore certain folks deserve it and certain folks don't. I come from the school of thought that education, specifically public education, really is the hallmark of American democracy. So I believe that all of our schools should have federal legislation that dismantles inequity in our neighborhoods, so that right across the street from where we live, we have some schools that are fully funding students and other schools that aren't. That's a problem. Second of all, we need universal preschool. Every child should have access, free access to universal preschool. We know the first 4 years of life are the most critical. We have a National Head Start program. We need to nationalize that program and have all of our children have equal access to that. So, you know, public education should be really a continuum that really should start free and public from the time that our children enter the world. That's kind of where I stand.
Woo, okay, we can clap for that. See some snaps. Awesome. Thank you so much, Reverend Edwards, for leading us off.
Call me Greg.
Thanks, Greg. So I'm going to turn it to Alfonso from CCP, who will introduce Summer Lee.
Thank you, James. Summer Lee is a lawyer, advocate, and community organizer running for state legislator in the 34th District of Allegheny County. She recently spearheaded the successful effort to build a pro-student majority on the Woodland Hills School Board after the board failed to address repeated instances of violence against students from police officers and student administrators. She graduated from Woodland Hills High School, Penn State, and the Howard University School of Law. Welcome, Summer.
Summer, if you're talking, I think you have it on mute. So you might want to start over.
There we go. Now I am muted. Are we good? Can we hear me? All right, cool. I am in the unlucky position of going after a pastor, but I'm gonna try my best. As the introduction, thank you so much for having me for this opportunity. I need to say that, you know, I am a product of public schools in Pennsylvania. I graduated from Penn State University. So yeah, free education is something that is extraordinarily important to me. I graduated, I went to Penn State and then I graduated from law school. In between the two of those, I have an amount of debt that I am embarrassed to share, but let's just say that I will be, if you can inherit debt, you know, my grandkids would have it. So ending, you know, ending this debt and coming up with ways to have free education is one of my biggest priorities here. As the lovely introduction said, you know, one of the things that I've been working on, which has also been near to me, is education equity, period. So one of the boundaries when you want to look at, you know, how poor communities and Black communities get ahead, how we attain upward mobility, education has to be it. So for me personally, like the pastor, I was a first generation college student. My family, my sister went to college, but, you know, she and I are years apart, but we were the first. I didn't have guidance. You know, no one in my family knew even what it was like to apply for school. But when it came down to applying for financial aid and scholarships and the like, I had no idea what any of that meant. And when I went to law school, I mean, it was just even further. So I had gone even further with little guidance and no help. So my primary source of funding my education was through loans, which means that, you know, now I have to find a way of trying to start my life after school, trying to use these degrees that I have, but being hampered with so much responsibility that I will literally never be able to handle. And the importance of that is that we have a community, you know, different communities in this country that are already behind, and that already, you know, don't have a leg up. And now with what's happening with education, without access to the free education, certain communities are basically inheriting more debt. Black communities are already more likely to come into school with lower income rates, with no wealth that we have accumulated. So even where we have an average income, you know, in only 11,000 or so, you know, our households and Black and brown households were less likely to have accumulated wealth, which means that our kids are going to school and we don't have parents who can help us. We don't have parents who can, you know, drop our check and make sure that we have a meal plan and make sure that we have housing on campus. And it's keeping us out, it's locking us out of a system because, as the pastor said, you know, education is supposed to be the way out of poverty. But between, you know, the fact that we don't have enough money to afford college education and the fact that our public schools, when we come in, you know, K through 12, our public schools are underfunded and we're getting poor education from our public schools. So we're already ill prepared for college as is, which means that we also might not qualify for as many scholarships. You know, maybe we might get need-based scholarships, but we're already not qualifying for scholarships based on academics because our academics were not up to par with schools and maybe a zip code just right next door to us. So as state rep and, you know, as a candidate running, you know, for office, I think it is tremendously important that we focus on education at both levels. So yes, we need free college education for all of our students in Pennsylvania. We need to ensure that, you know, everybody can get to free college, but we also need to ensure they're getting to college and that they're already prepared, that our public schools are funded equitably. And just like the pastor said, this is not something that is not attainable. There is money for this. In Pennsylvania, we are only second, there are only 2 states behind us when it comes to defunding spending for public education. But in Pennsylvania, we're spending money on mass incarceration. So we have the money. If we were not spending, so that's, now we have a question of what are our priorities? If we are prioritizing education instead of prioritizing and criminalizing folk for drug offenses and addiction and all these things, then we would have the money that we need to put into our students and to put into free education. And what that also means is that we have politicians right now in Harrisburg and Pennsylvania and on the federal level in other states that don't want us to have free education. In Pennsylvania, where I'm running also, we have, you know, a flat tax rate. So we're not taxing millionaires at the same rate that we're taxing everyday people who are making less money, which means that there is another source of revenue for funding public education. So the real question that we have right now is, you know, why don't our politicians, why doesn't our government want to provide access for students to have free education? Who are the communities that are being, you know, disproportionately affected by this? And then it all points to, you know, inequity, you know, inequality is structural racism. You know, if we are going to provide public education, free education, that also means that we are now going to give, you know, Black and brown communities a leg up. And like the pastor said before us, you know, that's an entitlement. And, you know, entitlements are bad. So the real question is when will this country, when will our state governments and our federal governments be ready to provide some equality? When will we be ready to tear down structural racism and provide, you know, our citizens and our students what we should be getting out of the richest and the greatest country in the United States? So I don't want to take up any more time. That's what I have to say.
Woo! Snaps for summer. Thank you so much. A couple of just housekeeping things before we move on to the next speaker. First of all, is Maureen Madden, is Representative Madden on the call? Ground control to Representative Madden. Okay. So we'll come back to her. Another thing is, so after we finish the speakers lineup, we'll have time for just a couple of quick questions. So folks should feel free to just start typing any questions that you have for the speakers in the chat, and you can send it to me privately. So again, that's James Sirsansky. You can see my name, or you can send it to everyone, and then I will call on a couple folks after we're done with the speakers. So that having been said, I'm going to turn it to Carlos to introduce Jay Brenneman.
Thank you so much, James. So Jay Brenneman currently serves as chairman of Erie County Council, a veteran. Jay served in the United States Army from 2002 to 2009, including 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He earned his GED after 9/11, so he could enlist. Jay went on to earn a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work from Mercyhurst University and a Master of Science in Community and Social Development from Case Western Reserve University. And soon after that, he created the Veterans Program at Mercyhurst and Edinburgh. A big proponent of affordable public education, Jay has played an instrumental role in the effort to bring a community college to Erie County. the largest metropolitan area in the nation without one. Jay lives in Erie with his wife, Jamie, their son, Elia, a public school student, their daughter Paige. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this call. And I'm sorry I don't have video. I've just came back home with my son who has Scouts, so I'm participating via my iPhone. But I think, like many other people here, I too have seen the value, I think, in education. I attended public school in Ohio as a young child, and because my parents didn't have a whole lot of money, we moved to wherever the jobs were, and that meant moving about every 2 years of my childhood. And then growing up in Montana, and I voluntarily made the choice to ask my parents to homeschool me because I figured it was too expensive to buy me clothes, to go to school, for any of the gas to get me back and forth to school. And so seeing that I knew they were cash strapped, I think my stepfather made like $4 an hour at the time, my mother even less. So, at that young age, making that decision. And what that meant is that I didn't get to finish high school. Shortly after 9/11, I wanted to join. I was 18 years old, joined the military, and and joining the military was one of two things. I mean, for one, it was serving our country after an attack, but also it was, I thought, an opportunity because I felt that my trajectory in life was going to be cut short because higher education wasn't an option for me. I felt it was well beyond my reach. So while I was in the military, I got to attend a community college class that they brought to the base, and while I was in, and married my wife, and I had used my combat pay to pay off her student loans, and they were considerable. I mean, the loans were rather high, and thankfully I was able to help pay them off. But on my way out, the military I had to make a decision. I got out and was looking at, well, do I just join the workforce as a defense contractor, which could make pretty decent money, but anything else I wanted to do would require a formal education. And also, I love learning, and I really wanted to give it a shot. And the GI Bill had changed at that point. Beforehand, the GI Bill was, it just paid a couple $1,000s every quarter. And then after that, there was a discussion to increase it to what the World War II veterans had. And as many people here may know, the GI Bill was used to help build America's middle class. It helped veterans after the war to buy homes, to start businesses, to go to school, and it paid them to go to school. It paid for their books, helped pay for their room and board, etc. And we see how strong our country was after that, through that investment by the government. And I remember the debates by senators and congresspeople from around the country when they were discussing changing this GI Bill to reflect what the World War II veterans had. And it was amazing to hear even veterans themselves who thought that in Congress that felt that maybe we shouldn't have this GI Bill because it might prove as a disincentive for members to stay in the military, that it might encourage them to get out. But what we found is serving in America's longest wars that are still going on, that it hasn't been a disincentive for folks to stay in. It's really the cycle of combat and being away from family, et cetera. But when I got out and decided to go to school, thankfully I had the benefit of the GI Bill. I was able to go to school. I didn't have to worry about paying the bills. And it was, it didn't come from like a sense of entitlement, like I deserve this because I served our country. As I went through my undergrad and then graduate training, I couldn't believe that, why doesn't the rest of America have this option? We've been in our longest wars since 2001, and we've spent on average $250 million a day for 16 years, $250 million a day. And here we're talking about education as whether it's something somebody deserves or whether they've earned it. Incidentally, I ended up just by chance being employed at a private university and then a state university, Mercyhurst and then Edinburgh, to run their veterans programs. And it killed me as a social worker, but as a veteran and as somebody who knows what it's like to have education, not to have it within reach, but then also the rewarding experience of having access to an education, counseling veterans and their widows and their children and their spouses. And money was if their benefits were running out, or if it didn't cover something, or if there was a hardship, that's all it took. Money was the one thing that would keep somebody from fulfilling their dreams. It would keep them from being able to take care of their family. It would kill their feeling of self-worth. And that experience has solidified for me the belief that all people deserve an education, not out of what you've done, but because you are a human being, but also you're an American citizen. And it's something that we receive tenfold, those investments. Here in Erie County, 5 years ago when I ran for Erie County Council, which is coming up, it's come up every so many years. There was another debate for a community college, and you talk to people who've been places and they're like, I can't believe you guys don't have a community college. Why is this a debate? But it was, unfortunately, and the movement for community college was killed. Essentially what people thought was the last time of all the times it was brought up. But then the past year and a half, a few of us resurrected it, and we changed course. And what's changed this time is that every candidate at every level of government locally that ran, who supported a community college, an affordable education, although free is where I think we need to be. Every candidate that has supported it won re-election or won their election. And we've seen that the community college is now up to the state board to decide whether we're going to, Erie County is going to have one. Unfortunately, what you learn along the way is that there's people that perceive education as a, that's well and good, you need an education, but I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford to pay everybody's education. And the government's created this perception that those that are struggling to get by are going to have to struggle more in order for people to have an education, and that education is a perk or a plus, that maybe you don't need it to get by, that an education is something that is what we would all want, but look how we have so much gridlock in Harrisburg and how nothing gets done. But then you can look and say, yes, the money is there. We have the second most expensive state legislature in the country. They provide themselves with excellent benefits as well. And you see that, and they're pitting, the politicians are pitting people, mostly people in poverty and disadvantaged communities, pitting us against each other, so that the debate dies at that level, instead of having that discussion, the elected officials leading on that discussion. And then what ends up happening is you have these disempowered local leaders as well that could become real advocates and real allies for free public education. And unfortunately, what happens is because they're not getting that kind of support from state elected officials, or perhaps they don't know much about it, and because of that fight that's left at the ground level, their local elected officials are more likely to sway with negative opinion than rather using political capital or knowledge or awareness to lead on the issue. And what I found is that, as in my own experience, but also from others that I've helped push along to champion it in their elections, as afraid as they were, as afraid as what the polls told them, everybody came out on top. And it's something that when you talk to constituents, when you talk to people about, it's not why should we have the education, is why can't we? And when you have that kind of conversation around the dinner table, at work or elsewhere, when you have that conversation, why can't we? Not why should we? Why can't we? And it changes the dynamic. And we are, it's really up to us as to whether we want to continue to push and have this, if we want to have that fight. Because again, nobody's going to do it for us. But for the sake of time, and again, I appreciate being here, and I'm overwhelmed by the speakers ahead, and I'm eager to hear everybody else's words on this as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay, for sharing those stories with us, and thanks for joining us. So we have time for one question, and thanks, Andrew, for posting this in the chat. So Andrew wrote, I'm curious as to what the reps, so what the folks who have spoken, what the plan of attack is from here, and what they would like the most from us. And I want to propose a framing of that, or just one way to word that for y'all, which is what can we do as a student movement and as a youth movement to support you to push these issues and to push this conversation. So we are a couple minutes past time for this part of the agenda. So if Greg, Summer, Jay, if y'all have 30 seconds of stuff to say, go for it.
Okay, so this is Greg. I think, one of the things that you can do is to really create awareness on your campuses that education is not about entitlement, but it's a right. So, that should be kind of a rallying cry, that, free tuition, specifically at public institutions, should be a right of every citizen, point blank, non-negotiable. And that should be a message that allows students to organize on campuses all throughout the Commonwealth. That's A. B, that if there is an organized network of folks who are making this their mantra, that needs to be really inserted in an unequivocal way into every debate or every forum where candidates seek to get elected, from local school boards to municipal races, to state races, and congressional and senatorial races. So, ultimately the power doesn't lie in politicians. The power lies in the people, right? So I think now is the time for all of us to push, right? So we have to push this issue. A lot of the times we're kind of just happy with the crumbs. And I think we're at the place in our nation where we are ready and able, with resistance groups, specifically around free public tuition, to push for the whole loaf of bread, to show up at forums and ask questions, specifically of our well-heeled politicians, who the majority of whom have gone to very affluent, many times, institutions. So, I think we have the opportunity to really kind of push the agenda and make it a stance for every candidate running for office.
Awesome. Anything real quick, Summer or Jay, that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely like to add, and Pastor, again, he took what I was going to say, that the power is in the people. And more than that, there's energy in young people. So what we have to do right now is exactly what you're doing. We need to be putting pressure on politicians at every single level, because when they understand that they don't have power and that they are not able to just do whatever they want to do, then you will get something out of this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm running because I didn't have anybody to vote for. So if you don't have anybody to vote for, then you can run. And the other thing that I come from organizing too. So I do believe that, there is power in organizing people. People have to be able to use their voice, and they have to know how to exercise their rights. But also we have to be able to shift in our resistance movements. We have to be able to shift from fighting power to being power and taking power. So right now is the time that we need to take power. And there's power in numbers and there's strength in numbers. So we have to be raising our voices. We have to demand that, every candidate and every politician right now, that they focus on this, that they have a stance on this and a platform on this, and we have to hold them accountable to that. this is not something that is negotiable. It's not something that is, you know, to be put at the bottom of the agenda. If you really are about, you know, economic growth, if you're about upward mobility, if you're about, you know, safety and health and all these things, then that the gateway to these issues is through free public education. And there is no if, and, or buts about that. So that's what we can be doing. And that's what students really should be doing right now. Use that energy for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with apologies to Jade, just because, you know, we're coming up a little bit on time and we want to be able to fit in the speakers for the last section of the call. We are going to move on, and we have a queue of folks who are lined up, who are students, who are workers, who are community members, who, you know, have a story and have perspective on what free higher education means to y'all and means to us. And so for this part of the call, we're going to ask folks to speak for no more than 2 minutes. And just because of the time, we'll be a little bit more aggressive about that, in all politeness. So again, we have a lineup of speakers, but if anyone would like to add themselves to the queue, I'm going to ask folks to go into the chat and message me directly. So find my name, which is James, in the chat, and let me know that you want to get on the queue. And we're going to plan to end the call around 9:20 if we can. So again, you know, just being a little bit strict about time, we want folks to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. So with that having been said, I'm going to turn over to Aspar, who will take us through the speakers.
Thank you so much, James. Like James said, we're going to keep it to 2 minutes as best we can. And our first speaker is Greg Riedlinger, hope I said that right, from the SEIU Local 668 and National SEIU Student Debt Organizer. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, I hope that people can hear me. I'm doing this on my phone. It's the first time I've ever used this. Real quickly, I'm here to probably talk a little bit of a different avenue of student debt as an issue, but to hopefully get a message across and to help join this fight as well. I work currently for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a state employee, but I'm also a very active member leader in our union. And I've done a lot of work over the past couple years in millennial organizing, and student debt has been a focus of what we've done. SEIU is a union that represents about 20,000 state workers in Pennsylvania. So most of the people that I'm working with are people that have already graduated from or are close to graduating from school, a lot of whom have a degree requirement for their job and have accrued a lot of debt. Personally, I have a job that requires a master's degree. I am ashamed to say it, but I use it as a tool to explain to people that because of my degrees, I have started with over $200,000 in debt, and I'm currently about $50,000 paid in that, and that's one of the motivating factors I had. A lot of the work that I've done is around enrolling people and our members in public sector loan forgiveness programs. But the message that I want to get across as someone who's worked on this statewide and nationally for a number of years is this is a fantastic organizing tool. If you look at the debt that people have and the debt that people will accrue by going to school, you're pretty much going to be tapping into everyone in our society, whether it be someone who's going or someone who knows someone who's going. And it speaks to work and quality of life afterwards. So as a word of encouragement, I started doing this about 5 years ago. And like I said, I've done work at a national and statewide level, gotten contract language accepted into the state and our county contracts on public sector loan forgiveness enrollment, and have started writing a piece of legislation on loan repayment programs for people. So I I look forward to joining the fight for free college. I think that it's something that's needed, and thank you. I probably went over my time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. That was really powerful. Our next speaker, I'm proud and very excited to introduce Professor Patricia Van Luvarda Munsami, who's a professor and distinguished chair at Dickinson College with the Africana Studies Department. Welcome and thank you, Professor. Make sure your mute is off, maybe?
Right.
You got it.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So I'm new to this forum and the issue, but what I'm going to speak about is from a very personal perspective. I'm a first-generation American. Both of my parents were immigrants to this country. I'm the only one in my family born in the U.S. And I'm also a first-generation college student in my family. So my experience, I've attended various types of educational institutions. I was accepted for my undergraduate degree to attend a public university, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, but I didn't understand how to navigate the financial aid process. I didn't understand how to navigate the college system. And so I went to a junior college for a couple of years and then transferred from there to several universities and finally finished my undergraduate degree at San Francisco State University. And then I went to graduate school at the University of Michigan. So I've attended junior colleges, and my education, both at the undergrad and graduate level, was at public institutions. At the time that I was going to San Francisco State University, the California State University system was very, very inexpensive. It was very much supplemented by funds from the state of California. And so it was very accessible to people like me who were, immigrants, who were first generation college students, et cetera. And, as a professor of Africana Studies, actually, I'm trained as an anthropologist. I think a lot about power. I think a lot about structural inequalities. And just my own personal experience, I think we have to have venues for higher education that are accessible to people. It means that we have to have it funded by the government, and that's going to be the big challenge, right, is to get government to appropriate funds. I mean, it's so hard to even get them to think about reducing student debt, so to even go to the next step to think about increasing augmentations to public universities so that tuitions can be reduced, that's going to be a big hurdle. But, from a structural point of view, it is really important to break down the kinds of structural inequalities that we have in our society. And an important way to do that is for people to have access to higher education. And, we value, as a professor, I can tell you that we really, really value having diverse classrooms. And so we want to make sure that we have education that's accessible to people from lower stratas of the socioeconomic continuum. We want to make sure that we have accessibility to people from various racial and ethnic backgrounds. We want to make sure that we have it available to people who are immigrants, et cetera. So I'm very supportive of this initiative. So that's just kind of my personal testimony.
Great. Thank you so much again, Professor Munsami. And we're going to move to our next speaker, Angel Mora, from Student Power of Erie's McDowell High School. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Do you guys hear me? Yes, perfect. Okay, so let me introduce myself. As you were saying before, so my name is Angel Mora, and as my brother said at the beginning, we are originally from Colombia. So we moved to the US 2 years ago. So I moved at the beginning of my junior year. So my junior year, I was speaking the language. So I didn't speak at all English. So it was for me really hard to get the language. I was in academic classes and I did really well. Now this year, I'm a senior at McDowell. I'll be going to Penn State Barry next year. I have already committed. I'll be going for psychology. So, and I'm trying to get to a view of what college in America looks like. I mean, I'm a first generation student. So for me, going to college is like a dream, something that my parents have never accomplished. And they wish that I will do. So for me, it's like something that I must do. I'm a good student. I work really hard in school. For me, it's also really hard to work hard because it's not only working in really in high. Okay, so first of all, I have the struggle with English, and second of all, I'm taking AP classes and honor classes. So it's really hard, and speaking in a second language makes it even harder. And the other thing, I'm a minority in this country, so basically because I'm a minority, people with the statistics say that I'm highly likely to not succeed in college. So I want to break that. Yeah, I want to break that. I don't know what my verse is. I want to break the stereotype. Thank you, Carlos. Because I mean, I'm an immigrant, but I want to show the whole nation that we, the immigrants, we move here because we love this country. We move here because we want to make this country great. Like I don't agree with the idea of trying to, oh, let's make America great again. No, I mean we move here because our dreams will come true if we work hard. I work hard in school, so I'm trying to get the scholarships so I don't have to get a full student debt. If I get many scholarships, I was doing the math, and I will graduate with a debt of $45,000, which is a lot. Carlos, as my brother also said at the beginning, my dad has 3 jobs, and next year we're going to be having 2 college students in the family, so it's going to be really expensive to go to college. And also, I need to start having a part-time job to pay my own car, my insurance, my phone bill, and also start saving money to pay my college debt. So I think that free college for me means the ability to go to college makes my dreams come true, help my community. And if I have free college, I wouldn't have to have a part-time job exclusively to pay my college debt. And I will have more free time to be a volunteer in my community and help other people. And that's everything, guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Angel. That was really powerful. As a reminder, let's aim towards 2 minutes. But all the stories are really powerful and amazing to hear, so I know it's hard. But our next speaker is Ian Matchett. They're the director of the Michigan Student Power Network and an alum of University of Michigan. So thank you, Ian.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. Hey, yeah, as was said, my name's Ian Matchett. I'm director of the Michigan Student Power Network, so comradely greetings from the mitten. And yeah, we're in the midst of launching our own free higher ed campaign. We're calling it Reclaim Higher Ed, and like kind of couching it in this idea that's been mentioned a lot of times in this call, the idea that if you just cut tuition tomorrow, that the people who are going to be helped by that are primarily going to be people who look like me and have an income roughly double of what my parents had. And that we really need to fight these fights both to improve K through 12 education and pre-K education, as well as making college a place that many different students from many different backgrounds actually want to be and want to stay after they get there. So we're talking a lot about sexual assault, multicultural centers. We got folks fighting to keep Richard Spencer off a couple of our campuses currently. And we're tying that all into this narrative around free, accessible higher ed. And we think that, like this has been said a lot here, the idea that we also have to get all these goddamn policies through some pretty conservative and pretty slow-moving legislatures that are really resistant even to basic changes in some of their things. Am I still? Can you still see me? I think I may have frozen. Oh, okay. Sorry. My whole computer stopped moving. Yeah, basically, the other side of that we think is that, like, yeah, our legislature right now in Michigan, everything that we come to them that is all progressive, they just say there's no money for that, fuck off. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you're org culture, but like, just basically get out of our face. And we think this is also a big argument to be made narratively about, like, what is our society for? Is Michigan, like, basically the line we've been using is, Michigan has had this really awesome experiment with giving our state's money to billionaires for about 60 plus years. It's been a lot of fun, but like any good experiment, you have to evaluate what has happened. And about the only thing that's happened is that Michigan's billionaires have gotten all of our money. And so we, as Michigan's young people, believe that the time is to try a new experiment where we invest in Michigan's future instead of its past, in young people and their futures, and the idea that we want to actually stay in our state as opposed to go to the coasts. And like, I don't know, I'm tired of seeing my friends go to California. Michigan's an amazing place. They should be able to stay here. They should want to stay here. And so, yeah, we're using that as a fight also against like some of the core ideas of neoliberalism, that we should just defund everything, that our state is just to hand money to rich people. We think those are also really key fights within this broader narrative. And that there's like, yeah, a ton of intersectional possibilities within free higher ed that we're really, really excited about. Also, I just want to note that it's super energizing to see so many people in Pennsylvania, a state I really have only driven through and or like known James in, doing this awesome work. I'd be excited to like have a delegation come out to Michigan sometime, maybe come to one of your conferences or something, do some like buddy building cross country. But yeah, thank you so much for the time, and looking forward to seeing more of your faces soon.
Thank you so much, Ian. And I know this week, I think, is the Michigan Student Power Week of Action. Maybe? I've been seeing it.
There's two things. There's a week of action against Richard Spencer. U of M just announced that they're not bringing him to campus, but they're just talking about it, maybe, kind of. And then we're also going to the state legislature to talk with them about Reclaim Higher Ed.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I know that if folks want to learn more about that, they can find the Michigan Student Power Instagram. And our next speaker is Steve Haas, who's a Shippensburg professor of psychology and a faculty activist. So thank you so much for joining us, Steve, and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? I think I'm unmuted and on video. So I just posted a message. That's basically what I wanted to articulate, is that the PASHE system is undergoing a chancellor search, which just started. There's a link to the press release. And one of the things that a lot of us as faculty are concerned about is how much say we might have in the next chancellor. The search process tends to be very closed. It tends to not be very transparent. So, you know, one of the concerns is a lot of this will be done behind closed doors. They've hired a search firm, which, you know, I don't know for sure, but the indications might be that, you know, they're going to try to bring in a corporatist to run the state system. So I guess my main point in a nutshell is I think it's really important for students to get involved and do whatever they can to have their voices heard in the selection process, whether that be talking with faculty, whether that be contacting legislators, getting involved with all the great organizing that you guys are doing. And hopefully there will be, you know, more coalition building to really, you know, have some events on campuses and to, you know, make the Board of Governors, you know, a little more looking towards what do the faculty and students and constituents want, instead of, you know, a tight-knit group at the Board of Governors kind of deciding who they want to run the system. So that's my message, and, you know, it's great what you guys are doing, and hopefully we can all have a great result together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Our next speaker is Monette, sorry, who is a One Pennsylvania member from Pittsburgh and currently pursuing a professional degree. So thank you so much for joining us. Go for it.
You guys able to help hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm pursuing my graduate degree at Slippery Rock University. And I'm also a member of One Pennsylvania, also proud. One of the things that attracted me to this fight is because my younger brother, who is a senior in high school, decided that he doesn't want to go to school. He just wants to work because he doesn't want to be in debt like me and his two older sisters. So that really hurt me. So that's why I want to spread the word, get us a push back against these legislators, and to start fighting back. But thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. We had Suja George raise her hand. Would you still like to speak? If so,
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Awesome.
Can you
Thank
hear
you
me?
so much. Yep, go for it.
So the reason why I joined Student Power and joined the movement is because I want to advocate for everyone. This is personal for me because so I am on Social Security disability, obviously because I'm disabled, and I'm an individual that's trying to move out on my own, and I don't qualify for financial aid at the moment because of my disability had affected my ability to get financial aid. So right now I'm paying for my education out of pocket. So it's affecting my ability to move out on my own with my family. So I'm not able to get a house of my own. And I don't even know if I can further pursue my education besides getting a degree at CCP. And I want to be able to go get a bachelor's degree and even get a master's degree if I'm able to. So I want to be able to advocate for others, advocate for myself and advocate for my daughter. But with free education, I'd be able to, be hopefully, move out, and pursue further goals. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for sharing. Our next speaker is Shenli, and who's a grad student and a worker activist with Coalition of Graduate Employees at Penn State. Go for
Hi.
it.
Yeah, I'm a third-year grad student, grad worker here at Penn State University, and I kind of want to just also share some of my perspectives since being here at Penn State and kind of like debates that we are having about like some of our grad worker rights, as well as what does it mean, or how does that connect to free college or affordable college, or affordable higher education. So in a sense that as being a teaching assistant over the past 4 to 5 semesters, we do see that like we've been experiencing the administration has been like increasing the admission numbers while, there's not as much of resource increase at all. So in a sense that what that means for us is the graduate workers, a lot of time we are the instructor or the instructor for the labs. That means that those lab sessions will get a later times. We do have here actually University Park that we do have lab sessions that runs from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. So in a sense, we are the grad workers who are teaching those lab sessions are the ones actually next day we need to get up early in the morning and again going back into teaching again. So in that sense, the administration doesn't really provide resources, but rather rely on the graduate workers to A, taking on more student loads or teaching load, or B, extended the teaching hours to very unfair time for our schedule. And then so in that sense that we kind of like feel that like our our values has being, our work values and our values are not being taken care of. And then that's something that we're fighting for, that like we need to be treated equally and fairly. And then also that sense that, not to mention, I want to mention that like Penn State has actually been spending thousands and thousands of dollars to hiring a law firm to promote this sort of anti-unionization here on campus. So that's to be said, that like there's money that the university has and the university have to, you know, to put where their priority is. So in that sense, I think that we as a graduate students, we do want to, the reason why we put ourselves into more education is because we do believe in that the knowledge should be spread. And we do also believe in that, like, when we teach, we want to provide a high quality education to the students that we teach. And I'm very advocate about, like, you know, higher quality education. But at the same time, the university is kind of like not giving us the resources and not giving us the power at the table to speak up about what kind of the needs and then the things that we see in firsthand in our classroom. So unionization would be a way, in the sense that we're fighting for, to gain this equal power, equal rights, and then just have a power to talk about the equalities that we need. And for example, I kind of want to point out that, like, graduate workers at University of Michigan, they actually meet their department heads like pretty much every single semester to address issues such as like class size and teaching loads and etc. In that sense that their contract, they will be having like they are having like 3-year contract instead of like currently here in Penn State, a lot of graduate workers that only do a semester based contract. So a lot of time students suffers like not having income in the summer, which is usually doesn't get paid over summertime. So kind of like you're stretching thing over those 2 period of time. So in a sense, I kind of was say that like I see a lot of similarities from the stories that you are all sharing and fighting for the equalities and fighting for more power to speak on the table, because you're paying a lot of money to get an education, and you should deserve the power to speak about what you want and what kind of quality of education you're getting. And then we're at the same boat in a way that like we want to talk about like how much work that we bring to the university and how much you know, the values that we bring in with versus what kind of power do we have. So that like I definitely very much so agree that like we should you know, the more solidarity brings the more power, in a sense that we can defend the university and defend the system, talking about, hey, we need to have more affordable education. We need to treat each of us with dignities, and then that's our rights for it.
Thank you so much, Shenli. That was really powerful. Before we go into our last speaker and our closing, just reminder to everyone, keep it around 2 minutes. It's so powerful hearing your stories, but it is 9:25, so I want to respect all of your time. But our next speaker is Monica Rush, who is a Millersville University senior and leader with Lancaster Stands Up.
Hi, everybody. I'll be really quick with this because I know we're on a time schedule. But I'm Monica. I'm working on the Free Higher Ed campaign at Millersville, and I guess I'll talk a little bit just about my experience. College was always part of the plan for me. I really love learning. I joke that if, you know, costs weren't a thing, I'd get like 8 degrees and just never stop going to school. And I think that a lot of times we are holding ourselves back in our education because of costs, which is not a thing that we should have to do. I didn't go to Millersville originally because I wanted to go there. I went there because it was the cheapest place to go. And now, after 4 years, my cost of attendance has gone up $16,000, and I kind of feel like that choice was a mistake. Thankfully, I love Millersville, but a lot of times I joke it doesn't love me back. And there have been times in my education, like when they built our new dorms, where I went and told them, I can't afford to live in this dorm. Can I get a pass to move off campus early? Because you're not supposed to move off campus till you're a junior. And it was insinuated to me that I should drop out if I couldn't afford to live in this new dorm. basically the lady told me that I should transfer or find somewhere else to go if I really couldn't afford it. And I know, thankfully, my family is well enough that I have support and I was able to go to school anyway. But I know people who are dropping out and leaving school and not finishing their degrees because of the cost of education. And I think that it's just really unfair that we're punishing people for trying to better themselves. So I get really fired up about this, and I think this is really awesome. And I'm really glad to see that you guys are all as passionate about this as well. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Monica. And thank you to all of our speakers. It's been so powerful hearing all of your stories and just being together on this call with a common goal. So I'm just feeling so energized coming out of this, thanks to you all. And I'm going to pass it over to James. Yeah, thanks again, everyone.
Great. So that's what's up. Thanks everybody again for speaking. Thanks everybody for being here and just being part of this conversation. And to close it out, I think we want to encourage everybody who's on this call, not just to think of yourself as a participant on this call, but to think of yourself as an organizer of this movement. There, I think, have been like 50 or so people in this chat room, which is dope. But we need far more than 50 people to win something as big as free college. So for our final little typing stuff in the chat box activity of the night before we split, I first want to just remind folks to think of those two people who you typed earlier, and we are saving what you wrote, so we will be following up with you, as well as any groups that you're part of that you can get involved in this movement. But just for now, we want folks to write one thing that you're taking away from the call. And then after that, I will turn it back to Alfonso to remind us about the ways that folks can get involved, and then we will call it a day. So again, just one thing that you're taking away from the call. You can go ahead and type that in the chat. All right, 30 more seconds for people who are still thinking. And great, thanks everybody. So one more time, Alfonso, if you could just remind folks the 3 ways that they can get involved.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. If you would like, for everybody to share, one of the easiest ways to get in contact and help spread this further is to share the position that James has put already in the chat. And if you haven't seen that already, please take a look at that. If you are a student, please consider joining PA Power and get involved in the campaign on your campus. And if you're a faculty or community member, please connect us with students that you know. Over the next few months, we will be holding town hall meetings, forums statewide to highlight student and community stories and to build support for our cause. So please help us host one in your area. And with that, I will turn it back over to James.
Woo! All right. Thanks, excuse me, it's getting late. Thanks again, everybody. So great to see you. We will be emailing everybody with some of the links and some of the stuff that we talked about on the call too. so you know how to reach us. And have a great night.